Who else here loves African violets? And did you know there are over 16,000 different cultivars to choose from? I have to admit that I cannot get enough of these beautiful plants. Now, they make great houseplants for several reasons. First, they're relatively easy to care for and require minimal attention, which make them an ideal choice for busy homeowners or those who are new to plant care and want indoor plants. As I mentioned, there are so many different types, and they have beautiful, colorful flowers that can brighten up any room in the house. I also love how small and compact they are, which makes them a great option for those of us with limited space. They can be grown in small pots or grouped together to create a stunning display. And like many other plants, African violets are known for their air purification properties, so they can help remove pollutants from the air and create a healthier indoor environment. Overall, African violets are low maintenance, visually appealing, and can contribute to a healthier indoor environment, making them an excellent choice for houseplant enthusiasts. In this Houseplant Care 101 series, sponsored by RePotme, I'm going to share the top 5 care tips that I've learned over the years that you need to know about caring for your African violets. As always, please make sure to leave your helpful tips in the comments below. This Houseplant Care 101 series is sponsored by rePotme.com. With RePotme, you can have all of your houseplant supplies delivered right to your door. They are a one-stop shop for all of your houseplant, orchid, or succulent needs. They have custom handmade houseplant soils ranging from tropical houseplants, cactus and succulents, pothos, snake plants, and more. I cannot live without their clear slotted orchid pots. They have amazing houseplant fertilizers and so much more. I've included their link in my description below, and you can get 10% off any soil with my code Ashley. First up is lighting. This is one that I get questions about all the time, anytime I post about African violets. And proper lighting is crucial for the growth and flowering of African violets. Bright indirect light, that's the way to go. African violets require bright indirect light to grow and flower properly. So placing your plant near a window that receives morning or afternoon sunlight, but it's best to avoid direct sunlight because that can burn the leaves. Now, my personal obsession are African violets with variegated leaves, and variegated African violets are those leaves that have a combination of 2 or more colors. Now, these colors may be white, cream, pink, purple, green, and they create a unique and eye-catching appearance. The variegation can be either random or a specific pattern. Variegated and non-variegated African violets have very similar requirements. However, it's important to note that variegated African violets may require slightly more light than non-variegated ones, as their lighter colored leaves can sometimes struggle to photosynthesize in low light conditions. If your African violets are not receiving enough natural light, which is the case for many of us, you can supplement with artificial lighting. You can use either fluorescent or LED grow lights, which emit the spectrum of light that plants need for photosynthesis. So keep the lights 6 to 12 inches above the plant and provide 12 to 14 hours of light per day. They do tend to grow towards the light, which can cause them to become lopsided. So to prevent this, rotate your plant 180 degrees every week or two to ensure even exposure to light. Next up is temperature and humidity levels, which is important for any of these tropical plants, and especially with African violets, it helps them bloom, which is one of the things that we love about African violets. So they do prefer temperatures between 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 15 to 24 degrees Celsius. So avoid exposing your plant to extreme temperatures if possible, such as drafts, cold windows, direct sunlight, as this really can cause stress and damage to the plant. African violets thrive in high humidity, which can be very difficult to maintain in indoor environments, as we all know. So to increase humidity, you can place your African violet on a tray with pebbles and water, or use a humidifier. You can group plants together. Alternatively, I have seen people cover the pot with a clear plastic bag or a dome to create a mini greenhouse effect. And during the winter, this is helpful. But don't forget to remove the cover periodically to prevent the buildup of mold or fungus. Improper watering is one of the most common reasons for their failure. With African violets, one of the most important steps is watering from the bottom. They are susceptible to crown rot, which can be caused by water getting on their leaves and the crown of the plant. So to avoid this, water your plant from the bottom. Fill a tray with room temperature water and place your plant pot on top of it. You could also have a saucer or anything like that, and the water will be absorbed through the drainage holes at the bottom of the pot. Now, they do prefer room temperature water, so avoid using cold water straight from the tap, and also avoid getting the water on the leaves. One of the lessons I've learned the hard way is when we are bottom watering our plants or African violets, don't let the plant sit in the water for too long. Sometimes it's easy to forget about the plant, and the next thing you know, it's been sitting in water and it gets root rot. I'm really excited to share some repotting tips about African violets that I've learned. And when I saw these adorable self-watering pots, I knew I just had to have them for my African violets. I only have 3 of them, so I will be also using my favorite clear slotted orchid pots. These are all from rePotme.com. These clear slotted orchid pots are well loved by many in the plant community because they are well draining and enable us to view the roots and moisture in the soil. Now, it's important to note the differences between a self-watering pot and a regular pot. Self-watering pots have a water reservoir at the bottom of the pot that allows the plant to absorb their water as needed. Now, this can be beneficial for African violets because they like to be consistently moist but not overly wet. With a self-watering pot, you can ensure the soil stays moist without worrying about overwatering or underwatering. However, it's important to monitor the water level in the reservoir and refill it when needed to avoid the plant drying out. Regular pots, on the other hand, require you to water the plant manually. This gives you more control over the watering schedule and allows you to adjust the amount of water the plant receives based on its specific needs. However, it's important to be careful not to overwater or underwater the plant, as African violets are sensitive to changes in moisture level. If you prefer a low maintenance option and feel comfortable monitoring the water level in the reservoir, a self-watering pot can be a good choice. And if you enjoy the process of watering your plants and want more control over the moisture level, a regular pot may be a better fit. Now, whether you're choosing a self-watering pot or a regular pot, it's very important to choose the right size because African violets prefer shallow pots that are just a little larger than their root ball. Using the right soil is imperative with African violets because they prefer well-draining soil that's slightly acidic. You can purchase soil specifically designed for African violets or make your own. Today I'm using the African violet soil from rePotme.com. I love that it's customized specifically for the needs of African violets. Now, I only repot my African violets every 1 or 2 years, so to me it's worth the investment to make sure I'm using the correct soil, but you can make your own soil as well. Sometimes it's helpful to water your African violets a day or 2 before repotting because this helps loosen the soil and makes it easier to remove the plant from its current pot. African violet roots are so delicate and thin that if you have the soil too dry, it can easily break the roots. So it's always important to be incredibly gentle when we are repotting. If you are using a self-watering pot, once you've repotted your African violet, all you need to do is fill the reservoir with room temperature water to the designated line in the pot. Make sure the water level is below the soil level to avoid saturating the soil. And even with a self-watering pot, it's important to monitor soil moisture levels. So check the soil regularly by sticking your finger in the soil to check for dryness. If the soil feels too dry, add more water to the reservoir. Last up is fertilizing, and fertilizing is an important part of African violet care as it provides essential nutrients for healthy growth and flowering. So it's important to choose the right fertilizer. African violets require a balanced fertilizer that contains equal parts nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So look for a fertilizer specifically formulated for African violets, which will have the right balance of nutrients and micronutrients. If you can't find or don't have an African violet fertilizer, you can also use one that is recommended for houseplants. Don't forget, as I always say, use a weak solution. African violets especially are sensitive to fertilizer, and using a strong solution can quickly burn their delicate roots. So dilute the fertilizer to 1/2 or 1/4 strength, following the manufacturer's instructions. And if you've recently repotted, wait a week or so before fertilizing your African violet. This will give it some time to adjust to its new home. During the growing months, which is typically from spring to fall, African violets should be fertilized every 2 to 4 weeks. Now during the winter months, you don't need to fertilize your African violets unless you are seeing new growth, which you can fertilize at that point every 6 to 8 weeks. Just make sure you are using a very weak solution. Don't forget, we don't want to get any water or fertilizer or anything on the leaves of the African violets because it can burn the leaves. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 care tips for African violets. I hope this video was helpful, and please don't forget to leave any additional helpful tips you've learned about caring for these wonderful plants. And huge thank you to rePotme.com for partnering with me on my Houseplant Care 101 series. There are many other episodes to explore on plant care. I have included a link in my description below to all of their amazing plant care products, and don't forget to use code Ashley for 10% off any of their soils. And if you'd like to see future episodes show up in your newsfeed, make sure to subscribe. And we also have a wonderful plant community on Instagram. In fact, I'd love to see some of your beautiful African violets. So if you're on Instagram, it would make my day if you tag me in your African violet photos. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. You will definitely be seeing me soon. Bye!